Halo investor, saat ini saya berada di Indonesia International Infrastructure Conference and Exhibitions 2013, tepatnya pada acara launching buku Public Private Partnership atau PPP 2013. PPP diharapkan dapat menjadi sarana untuk membantu pengembangan proyek infrastruktur di Indonesia. Saat ini bersama dengan saya Mr. Jose Emmanuel, Deputi Direktur Eksekutif dari PPP Filipina, akan menyampaikan pendapatnya mengenai PPP Indonesia dan juga pandangan dari pihak swasta, apa yang diharapkan pihak swasta oleh pemerintah. First question is about your opinion about PPP in Indonesia. What is the opportunities and the opportunities that you can see from the PPP?
Indonesia has a large population, larger than the Philippines, so the infrastructure requirements are actually larger. So if Indonesian PPP projects are well structured, then I feel that there will be large opportunities for private sector partners to be involved in developing infrastructure and providing not just infrastructure but also some social services that have a strong business case behind them.
And about the difficulties, what is the most difficulties that Indonesia facing in preparing PPP in Indonesia?
It appears that well-structured projects are a key area for improvement. I say this because that has also been the experience in the Philippines. When projects are not well structured from the outset, are not studied enough to look at not just the economic viability but also the financial viability and the effects on the environment, etc. You really have to look at all the different factors to make sure you consider viewpoints from different stakeholders. Now, when that is considered and then you're still able to make it such a way that the project will have adequate returns to the private sector investor, then the hope is that when you have a public tender, there will be competitive bids that will drive the cost to a level that is acceptable to the public, but will still also deliver the service that is required.
From your previous experience,
Okay.
what is the expectation from the private sector, from the government?
The private sector, because it's investing its own funds,
Yes.
wants a level of certainty, wants to be able to be in an environment where it can be the one to absorb the risks that it can absorb. But the private sector wants that the public sector take on the risks that cannot be allocated to the private sector, but only that the public sector can take on. If there's an adequate allocation of risk between public and private sectors, then there will be that level of certainty. Yes, I can influence, for example, my operations and maintenance. I can influence my construction, but I cannot influence, for example, if I'm the private sector, I cannot influence how regulations will change. So the government also has to provide some level of guarantee or some level of comfort that regulations will continue to be favorable to the project during the life of the concession, that there will be adequate termination parameters, so that if there's an unwinding, it will be done in a proper manner and a predictable manner. So I think the expectations are reasonable. If the expectations are too high, then if there's a perception that the private sector asks too much from government, I think that is a situation that the private sector requires, because if they are, for example, a publicly listed company, they do have fiduciary responsibility to their investors that they also invest their monies prudently. So it's up to the public sector to lay the groundwork for successful PPP projects.
Okay, so in conclusion, it's about the regulation and policies from the government.
It has to be clear. It has to be well documented and communicated to as many stakeholders as possible, not just to the private sector but also to the general public. This is the reason we're doing this project. If the private sector gets involved in delivering the toll road, for example, then the government can use the money that would have gone into that project into other national priority projects that do not have a business case behind them but still provide a lot of public good. For example, if they invest in providing school buildings that cannot be done by a PPP, if they provide services to the poorest of the poor, provide free healthcare, if the funds go to infrastructure that could have been done by the private sector, then it could not provide for the other public services that have no business case. So it allows us to serve the needs of the largest number of people.
Demikianlah Investment Corner kali ini. Salam Fibis.